The suspense is terrible. I hope it will last. This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the focus group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the focus group. Tim Bennett here with a frog in my throat for some reason, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. We are the focus group here every Wednesday with our audio feed on Saturdays. All of our programming is available at focusgroupradio.com. You'll also find our sponsors there, including Deep Discount, who's a partner of ours here, and we'll be talking about them a little later in the show. Mr. Nash, how was your... Well, we got through Easter, and I know you had some traveling over the Easter holiday. So how was your Easter?
Happy post-Easter indeed. My youngest niece, Catherine, got married on Saturday over the weekend. We were in Maryland. I kept pronouncing it Tannytown until finally someone called it Tawnytown. Tawnytown, Maryland.
You're saying Tannytown?
I'm saying Tannytown.
Tannytown.
Like Dantana, Vegas. People would look at me like I was crazy. We drove out on Friday. Google kept putting us further west on the Pennsylvania Turnpike until we dropped down through Gettysburg. Mm-hmm. And Bob said, we should just pop by and visit Gettysburg for a little bit. I'm like, Gettysburg is not the kind of place you go to for a half hour, an hour. There's a lot to do there, and there's a lot of history to absorb. So we were thinking of maybe doing that later. The place they got married was this beautiful old brick kind of like antebellum house. Gardens, the whole bit. I think it was called Antrim. I forget the Antrim something. My niece was a beautiful bride. Her husband, Luke, is super cool. They did a good wedding. It was about 75 or 80 people. Wow. You could actually talk to everybody. My relatives were there. It was great to see my sister and her husband. My other niece, Emma, flew in from Texas with her boyfriend, Vince. It was great to see them. And my youngest, the other niece, Emma, just turned 30, which I'm like, she's half my age. It's so weird when you think about that, right? And one of them's getting married. All right, so while we were down there, you're going to appreciate this. We had a Saturday morning, early afternoon to ourselves, and my older sister and her husband were staying in the same hotel we were, so we decided to go and do something. I went online, and I found something that was happening that weekend, or it had happened for the last 2 weeks, and it was called Peep Show. I saw it. I'm like, Peep Show. I thought, is this some kind of like... And I thought, wait a minute, we're in Maryland. It was a peep show. And what this was some arts council down there has done this for many years. They invite people to participate in the peep show by creating sculptures out of peeps. The marshmallow peeps, the ones we've sort of banned from the focus group because they're like
from the homophobic company Just Born. Yes,
we only talk to traditional families was the line we got when we were back on Sirius back in the day. It was hilarious. It was in some mall, and the mall was kind of like one of those malls that has seen better days. Like a lot of.
Well, they all have.
Well, it was not. It didn't have any of the flagship stores you would associate. Like it didn't have Zara, Gap, like all that other stuff. But it did have a lot of like these other stores, like a Dungeons and Dragons room where you could go set up. People, they sit around these tables with the figures and the cards and they do the gaming. They did have an amazingly huge science fiction like paraphernalia store. And I picked myself up this little dolly here. This is Captain Kirk in his... environmental suit from the show, the episode The Tholian Web. It was $8. I couldn't say no. I'm like, wow, an action figure, 12-inch.
How could they have? Figure. Is it a chain or was it just happened to be?
It's a one-off store, and it was loaded with like toys.
God, I'm surprised they got you out of there.
Well, I operate by the theory of, do I really need something, right? Like, do I need a Millennium Falcon? Do I need So when I saw this unique little character, and I thought $8 plus tax, it's going to be like $9, whatever it was. I can live with that. So I got that. And the Peep Show was hysterical as well. Some hilarious entries that people made with
Did you have to pay?
It was a donation. What you did is you bought, you got like you spent $10 and you got like 25 of these little plastic tokens. And by every creation, there was a little box and you could vote for what your favorite sculptures were. And that's basically what you did. So I gave everybody in our group got a bunch of them, and we voted for our favorites. Some of them were just very, very funny, like a recreation of The Simpsons and Peeps and, stuff like that.
So was that your favorite one, or was there one that stood out for you?
There was a sea turtle, a dragon. There was a pizza box, and it was open. It was a a box, right? And the pizza was made of all the different peeps, and there are a lot of good ones. There was one called Peepfora. Instead of Sephora, it was using all the colors of Sephora, and it was like a makeup thing. Princess and the Peep. It just was this. It looked as an enormous stack of peeps, and on the top was a sculpture of a woman made out of peeps.
Now, could you have changed the structure of the peep? In other words, could you stretch them or bend them, or did they have to stay in there?
You were allowed to mash them up, and as long as it was a peep that was used. That was a kind of a funny thing we noticed. We preferred it if they left them intact.
Right.
But some of them looked like they had just used it like they had squished it and put it on with whatever they
molded
did,
it to something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, another thing I would say is, when was the last time you were in Maryland?
Not too long ago. Probably a month ago.
I don't mean any insult by this, but my brother-in-law said it to me, and we experienced it on the way home. They are crazy drivers down there.
Yeah, I don't know if I noticed that. So the part of Maryland I was at is more the Eastern Shore, was more rural, so I didn't get involved in that. But no, around the belt. I don't know if you were around the Beltway, or you were further in.
Flying around, dodging, not using signals. Like, they probably drive these roads every day, and they know. But Herb he flew down from Connecticut with Lisa, and they drove from the airport, and Herb was a mess, a nervy mess. He's like, these drivers, they don't signal. They do this. Like he said, I thought Connecticut was bad.
Maryland's odd in that Maryland has kind of usurped Connecticut as being, other than Alaska, which was because of the oil, but Maryland's usurped Connecticut as being the most affluent state.
Really?
And so that could be part of it, the entitlement that you would get by living in an affluent state. As you know, everybody's important, has somewhere to go. And and they also, though, have some outrageous taxes, which everybody says they seem to be trying to catch up with Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey in terms of their taxes and the craziness of taxes. So I don't know. It's one of those odd states because, like Pennsylvania, it goes all the way out to the end of PA, really. And it's very, very rural out that way. I've been out that way many times. And you would not equate the two as the same, but similar to New York City and upstate New York, right? I mean, two very different places.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm glad you had a nice trip. So the weather held out for you?
Weather held out. They had their ceremony outdoors, the wedding itself, but then everything else was in different buildings of this like beautiful home and grounds. And it was just, my niece, Catherine, kudos to her and her husband, Luke. Yeah. They planned a really, really fun, good event. And, that's hard to say with every wedding, I think. Right. And I know I'm biased, but.
No, at our age, the weddings are about the food, I think. But
anyway. The food was delicious. Yeah.
So, well, I was in Connecticut, which I hadn't been for Easter in probably 3 or 4 years, and maybe even longer. But so it's nice to be in Connecticut, although it's funny, as I was driving back, you probably noticed this driving down from New York, there's definitely a line where the things are blooming and the things are not blooming.
Yes.
And
Maryland was blooming.
Yeah, Connecticut was not. They're actually supposed to get snow this week again. Yep. So, but it was a nice visit. I spent a lot of time with my mom, and we did some business, but also we had some fun drives around. So it was nice to be in Connecticut. So, Mr. Nash, without further ado, what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
All right, we have to go all the way over to the UK for what caught my eye this week. I think it's Bristol, the Royal Crescent in Clifton, Bristol, to be precise, and it concerns a brass plaque that was put on a park bench. And so the plaque says, "For my love, husband, father, adulterer. Yes, Roger, I knew." So it says his years of life were from September 6th, 69 to I guess it looks like Christmas Day, December 25th, 2023. And you know how they don't do month, day, year. They do day, month, year over there. So a lot of debate in this little town called Bristol is whether or not this plaque is really truly real. You know, like, yeah, for my love, husband, father, adulterer. Yes, Roger, I knew. Most residents doubt its authenticity, and there's a woman named Rachel Weaver Tooley, whose balcony flat overlooks the bench, and she points to the date of Roger's birth on the plaque. 060969. Revenge is a dish best served cold and in a brass plate, she says, in the spring sunshine. But look at the numbers in the dates. 6969. Come on. Yeah, and so the town is like kind of in a kerfuffle, and a funny kerfuffle. I love things like this where they go to the blacksmith. And they said to the blacksmith, have you made a plaque? Because he's the only one that does engraving in the town. They're like, nope, that's not my thing. And then they have a couple of people that they've been trying to figure out who this could have been. And they even think it could be the graffiti artist Banksy. Because if you're watching on YouTube, there's a picture of a graffiti art of a guy hanging out a window with a man and a woman in the window, and it's what's it called here? It's called Well Hung Lover. is the graffiti art. So they don't know who did it. They're not sure it's true or not. But people that have embraced it as true have traditionally interesting, or I should say, typical response. Like a psychotherapist said, if it's real, his spouse has put up with this for years, and only when he has died did they feel able to tell the truth. A very passive person. I'm not sure that's the thing there, but yeah. So that's what caught.
So the guy died young at 54. I would tend to believe it. Why would you do it if it wasn't true, right? I'm guessing this isn't like one of these cities where you've got to pay to put the plaque on, which just has me thinking. Because in Rehoboth, you have to do that here. And I'm thinking, why not just make a plaque and put it on a bench that doesn't have one?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's real?
You know, this popped up in two different places, and it was the same sort of story. Like, townsfolk don't think it's real, some do.
Right.
I took it as real just reading it because, you know, there's nothing inherently horrible about the fact that the plaque says, yes, Roger, I knew, or that he was an adulterer, right?
Right.
And there's no last name. There's no last name. For my love, husband, father, adulterer. Yes, Roger, I knew.
I kind of like it.
I do too, and I think that maybe if it's real, you know, like. Yeah, but I'll tell you this: for this little town of Bristol, and this little what was it called the Royal Crescent or something. Lots of people have come to see the plaque, so maybe not such a bad thing from a tourist point of view, right?
You'll have to start putting some around Ghent. Just get some tourist dollars in there.
Exactly.
George Washington slept here, right? Do all those.
What is that? If Washington actually slept everywhere he was supposed to sleep, he would never have been awake, right?
No, or he never lived at home. He was like Putin, somewhere different every night. Kim Jong-un. The mine is a little different, and it was actually part of. I took a quote from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The suspense is terrible. I hope it will last. Which is a quote from Willy Wonka.
Gene Wilder, the Gene Wilder version, right? Yeah.
Mine caught my eye. It comes from Glasgow, Scotland, and this is right up your alley. And I thought this was hilarious. So there was a promotion. It was done by a group called the House of Illuminati. And for about $70 or 35 pounds, you were promised an immersive experience based on the Warner Brothers film Wonka. So, of course, the young chocolate entrepreneur. So the latest film, Wonka, was starred Timothy Chalamet. And so people were clamoring to go see this immersive display and exhibit, and they were going to it was billed as a celebration of chocolate in all its delightful forms. But it ended up, they said, a tale worthy of an Oompa Loompa song. Police had to be called to the venue. Families were furious. They spent hundreds of pounds. Children were left crying. They said it was just awful, and they had to abruptly cancel the event midway through. So they had promised. I don't know if you have the pictures. If you're watching, you can see some of the pictures. But they had promised an actual giant mushrooms, candy canes, chocolate fountains, special audio and visual effects. You were supposed to be led through narrating by dancing Oompa Loompas. There were going to be tiny orange men. And instead, it turned out to be in some industrial park in the industrial area of Glasgow. It was sparsely decorated. They had a scattering of some plastic props, a small bouncy castle, and a backdrop that they just had pinned against the walls, some of these, movable cubicle walls. And people were immediately angry when they arrived, demanded their money back. Somebody actually called the police. That's when the police had to come. There was a Facebook page set up where people were, showing all their disappointment. They had talks with the local news showed up. They were talking to one of the actors. He said when he arrived, he knew the trouble was going to start. He said, they told us, what they told us to do, he said, the rubric we had been giving was impossible to fulfill because none of the props or special effects were there. He said he looked around and just didn't know what to do. He was told by the producers of the event to just hand the kids a couple of jelly beans and a quarter cup of lemonade as they walked through. They said, and the picture of the woman who was there, I don't know if you have her, the Oompa Loompa.
She's up in the right corner. Yeah, she looks
I went
so
to the Twitter,
unhappy.
I went to the Twitter page, and they're like, how to make meth at home. Or because she's sitting there. And they said, this was the Oompa Loompa. And then somebody said, hi, welcome to Lush. Remember that soap place in the mall?
Yeah.
So anyway, when you look at those pictures, they're horrific. They've the House of Illuminati has since apologized, said that they understand that people traveled great distances, and they're going to try to refund everybody's money back. They're saying that a lot of the props did not arrive in time. They probably should have canceled the event, but instead they put it on to the disappointment of many.
Yeah, I'm glad you picked this. I was following this for like
a
week or yeah. This popped up about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it got worse and worse and worse as the time went on. You learned that I'm surprised you quoted the kids got a couple jelly beans because one parent said they got one jelly bean in a Dixie cup full of water.
Water.
And then last week it was reported that some composer in London is planning to create a musical out of this because it said the whole experience is filled with the things we see in musical theater: farce, pathos, comedy, and apparently the script that the actors were given was generated by ChatGPT. It was like an AI thing. And there are pictures of kids crying, and and there's lawsuit was threatened. And so this was like, what this reminds me of? The Fry, was it the Fry Festival?
The Fry Festival, where it was going to be that VIP
everybody
experience.
Shows up to an island. There's like 2 bottles of water, a cot, and a tent.
They had an egg salad sandwich in a plastic bag.
Lucky was in, yeah.
It's 3 days old.
That's what this reminds me of. So I'm glad you did this because this has been one of those things that had been kicking out some great little memes and stories for a while now.
Yeah, the pictures, and I give credit. I'm not. Neither of us are a big fan of Twitter, but when I did click on the story, it brought me there, and then I just started reading the comments, and I was just dying laughing.
Yeah, this was one of those joyful little Twitter moments. Oh, sorry, X.
Yeah. Well, I still type in Twitter to find it, and it shows up. I don't know if that's just like Prince, right? The ruse of X.
Actually, there was an article the other day that I just laughed at. Someone said it's 2 years on, and we're still calling it Twitter. That was a great rebranding. Yeah, and by the way, it is. I go on there to see pictures like this, funny things like this.
Right.
You're scrolling, and depending on your feed, there's tons of porn pops up.
Oh, yes.
It's the OnlyFans people putting a little clip up so that you can go subscribe and see them do their stuff. And then there's just this vitriol, like just nasty stuff, the politics stuff. So it's and out of the social media services, I think Twitter is like the smallest universe, right? Facebook's the biggest.
Right. Facebook is by far the biggest.
Instagram is huge, and TikTok is like where all the action's at. In fact, on Easter Sunday, Pat sent us a TikTok video of this guy in the New York City subway dressed as Jesus, and it was called Stand Up Jesus. And he's doing this bit on a rail car, like a moving subway car. And at one point he says, I went to this bar and I was drinking. They're like, you got to get out of here. You've had too much. We're not going to give you you're cut off. You can only have water. He goes, that's not a problem because, Jesus turns water to wine. And they kept showing these reaction shots of people in the audience, like, or on the subway train being unmoved by Stand Up Jesus.
Well, I'm sure the right hasn't gone ballistic yet because you saw there was a Hunky Jesus contest out in California this
Really?
past weekend for Easter. And a couple of our listeners had sent and posted to our social feeds pictures of Hunky Jesus. And so I'm sure once they catch on, probably 4 or 5 months from now, they'll catch on that event took place.
Or what do you want to bet
California.
that Hunky Jesus is okay?
Yeah, he might be because he's
You know,
white.
because he's also Hunky Jesus is the personification of male, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you're
for
probably
them,
right.
it's like, okay, that's the role.
Hey, when we started here, we mentioned that Deep Discount's been a partner of ours here for quite some time on TFG I keep saying TFG Unbuttoned. Be sure to find TFG Unbuttoned on Tuesdays. This is the focus group on Wednesdays. The right now at Deep Discount, there's an MGM 100th anniversary sale, so you can celebrate and save on cinema classics from MGM. And as you know, when you head over to Deep Discount, you can get there by going to focusgroupradio.com and clicking on the Deep Discount logo. You can own your passion and start shopping away. So what did you find this week at Deep Discount, Mr. Nash?
I didn't have to dig. I didn't have to go too far. Right there on the homepage is what I picked, actually. It's a movie that when it came out, it was universally panned. It had a huge budget. People were dying to see this when it came out. And, I think it has, is it Elizabeth Berkley, who used to be in Saved by the Bell? This is her big transition to, the big screen. And it's the movie Showgirls. And it's available now in 4K Ultra HD. I think this needs to be in everybody's permanent physical library, especially.
You said that.
Yeah. Have you
Many
seen it, Tim?
You had sent it to me, and I'll be honest, I haven't hooked up my DVD since I moved. But I need to do that.
It's one of the most controversial studio films ever made, with Basic Instinct director Paul Verhoeven and script writer Joe Esterhaus. Reteaming for a graphic and unflinching drama set amid the world of Las Vegas dancers. A young woman, Nomi, played by Elizabeth Berkley, arrives on the Strip dreaming of stardom, but first must work at a sleazy strip joint as a pole dancer while befriending a top showgirl and seducing her hotel big shot boyfriend. Gina Gershon plays Crystal Connors. I mean, Kyle MacLachlan's in the movie. It is like... years after the movie came out, it was so popular as a cult film, almost like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, that they used to have screenings in New York, showgirl screenings that would sell out. Yeah, like Saturday night or something like that. Is
it camp or is it?
It's not meant to be per se,
right?
But when you see this movie, yeah, look at my reaction. It works for us, Bob. If you have Showgirls on, if Showgirls is on HBO or something, like it can't be the broadcast version. You have to get the whole thing. We will immediately transfixed down the rabbit hole. It's hysterical.
Well, because you said sometimes, you said sometimes when they would show it, they would, because the women are topless, right? In some of those scenes,
they would do these digital things,
which it takes away from it, I guess. Mm-hmm. Of the whole thing, but now you've intrigued me, so now I need to.
Yeah.
I need to fire up the DVD. The one I picked is I picked because I laughed when I saw it, but it's actually a future release, so it will come out mid-April. And the way Deep Discount works, you can sign up, and as soon as it is and pay for it, and as soon as it's available, it will ship to you. So you'll get it at the best cost. It's also in 4K Ultra HD, priced under $30. It's Steel Magnolia's 35th anniversary edition. So it obviously stars Sally Field, Dolly Parton, Shirley MacLaine, Julia Roberts, Olympia Dukakis, and Daryl Hannah. A great comedy. They have it listed also as romance. I'm not sure I would have put it as romance. But
yeah, because of she's going to get married. There's
yeah, I guess so. I guess you're right. So 6 divas of the silver screen, they come together as bosom buddies in a hilarious and heartwarming story. I don't know anyone who hasn't seen it. Takes place in Louisiana. And I laughed when I saw this only because, that viral TikTok that was going around with the 2 queens at the airport at American Airlines who lost Shelby and Dolly. And... which were names.
Remember that, yeah.
And everybody, they were screaming and yelling at the airport with their Louis Vuitton bag and their matching striped shirts and sneakers. And don't you care about Shelby and Dolly? And everybody kept saying, do you think it's related to Steel Magnolias? All these people were, no doubt, obviously. So you can sign up and be one of the first to get the Steel Magnolia's 35th anniversary edition, and by going to deep discount and getting on the list there. It will be originally released in 1989, and this new release comes out 4/23/24.
Excellent choice. Excellent choice. And we do have a new release this week, which I'm dying to see, actually, because it has two actors I enjoy a great deal, Anthony Hopkins and Matthew Goode, who I believe was in Downton Abbey as Lady Mary's final, I think he was the second husband. And that movie is called Freud's Last Session on DVD. London, September 3rd. It just came out about a few days ago, so it's available right now. 1939. The world is on the brink of war. In its final days, Sigmund Freud, played by Anthony Hopkins, a recent escapee and his daughter from the Nazi regime, receive a visit from the formidable Oxford Don author C.S. Lewis, who's played by Matthew Goode. On this day, two of the greatest minds of the 20th century intimately engage in a monumental session over the belief in the future of mankind and the existence of God. So there you go, folks. We want you to go to focusgroupradio.com, click on the deep discount logo, and start your shopping extravaganza. It's a MGM 100th year classic sale. There are tons of you could spend quite a bit of time just looking through the MGM movies and pick your thing. I picked Showgirls 4K Ultra HD. If it's on back order, don't worry. Just order it, because you do want this in your collection. Just do it, because it will show up. And Tim picked Steel Magnolias 35th Anniversary Edition, soon to be released, but you can get on the pre-order list right now. And the minute it comes out, Deep Discount will ship that directly to you. And the release this week is Freud's Last Session, starring Anthony Hopkins and Matthew Goode. So there you go, folks. We are going to take a really quick break. When we come back, we have a business birthday as well as a shop talk, so stay with us.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Hello, and welcome back to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. Be sure to follow along with us throughout the week at focusgroupradio.com. Or while you're there, you'll also be able to attach yourself to any of our social media. Be sure to follow us if you would. We like to get the numbers to go up. Our numbers are going up a little bit, John. One of our listeners, Kate and Bunky here in Rehoboth, they've been banging the drum for people to listen to us. So I think that's been helpful.
We're going to talk after the show about a little plan you had for some ads. Anyway.
And by the way, did you find? So when I was up in Connecticut. Did you have any Easter candy? You mentioned those robin's eggs. I couldn't find them. The malted.
Yeah, they're like malted milk balls, basically. The candy, hard candy shell, chocolate inside. No, we barely had Easter candy. It was everywhere, but we barely had it.
I'm going to try to look at the grocery stores this week to see if it's on sale, because so there were two things I could not find. So I have two little nephews, great nephews, and I wanted to get them a little Easter thing. And I was looking for Easter candy, so I immediately wanted to find those robin's eggs you mentioned.
Yeah,
I could not find them down here. But for myself, I used to love the black jelly beans.
Ooh.
They used to sell just black jelly beans. Couldn't find them. I could barely find jelly beans. Unless they were some kind of goofy thing, like they were Starburst jelly beans, or I couldn't find Jelly Bellies. I couldn't find just regular old Brock's jelly beans. I don't know why. Lots of Skittles and things like that. And very little chocolate. We did that story a couple of weeks ago about how chocolate was going up.
Cocoa.
And I think then we had quoted 7,000 a ton. It's up to over 10,000 now.
10,000 a metric ton, yeah.
So your chocolate, folks, if you're a chocolate addict, you better...
I'm buying a bunch on sale.
Yeah, you better.
Especially dark chocolate.
Get it and put it in the freezer. So without further ado, we've got our business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
You probably know who this person is, John. Born April 3rd, 1969. Melody Hobson. Do you know her?
I sure do. Yeah.
I knew you would. You want to say why you know her?
Well, she used to be the former chairwoman of DreamWorks Animation.
And why was that? Do you think?
Is she married to George Lucas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was married to George Lucas. No, it
She
wasn't a
still
trick
is married to
question.
George Lucas,
right, she
by the
was.
way.
Yes, she still is. But I wondered but she's certainly accomplished in her own right. But initially, when her name popped up in the business birthday feed when I was looking around, I said, "Oh, she was, head of DreamWorks," and I scratched my head, and then I saw, she was married to George Lucas, and I said, "Oh, did she get that gig because she was married to him?" Probably. You think a little bit? But when I did research about her, I found out she certainly has far more
Business,
accomplishment
yep.
before she got to DreamWorks. So born April 3rd, 1969, happy 55th today to Melody Hobson. American businesswoman. She was president and CEO of Ariel Investments. And I didn't know what Ariel Investments were or is. It's the largest African-American owned money management and mutual fund company in the U.S., and she's also, aside from still involved with Ariel Investments, she's also the chairwoman of Starbucks Corporation, which I was surprised about. So she's left DreamWorks. She stepped down after negotiating the acquisition of DreamWorks by NBC Universal in 2016. She became in 2017. She became the first African American woman to head the Economic Club of Chicago. She was also named to chair the board of directors at Starbucks in 2021, making her one of the highest profile corporate directors in the U.S. She was listed as number 94 on Forbes list in 2020 as one of the world's 100 most powerful women. And in December 2020, it was announced that she was being named chairwoman of Starbucks, which led her to become the first black woman to be a chairperson of a S&P 500 company. So certainly very, very accomplished. Graduate of Princeton University. After she graduated, she joined, as we said, Ariel Investments, and she rose from an intern up to president and head of marketing. And she's done. I've not seen her, but they said she's been a contributor on a number of TV programs, such as Good Morning America, which I don't watch. CBS This Morning, in terms of talking about financial advice and financial. She would host financial segments about money in the economy.
Yeah, financial literacy, stuff like that.
Yeah. And then of course she's had all kinds of 20 under 30, top 30 under 40. I mean, she's got every sort of award there could be. She created and hosted a show in 2009 called Unbroke: What You Need to Know About Money, which featured the Jonas Brothers, Oscar the Grouch, and Samuel L. Jackson. I don't remember that at all.
That's an interesting Oscar the Grouch kicking off the
Right. So the interesting thing is she also, in October 2020, she and her husband George Lucas, the Family Foundation, is given the lead gift to establish a residential college at Princeton University. She's married to, as John had noted, she's married to film director George Lucas. They met in 2006 after a business conference. In 2005, they got engaged in January of 2013 and were married in June of 2013 at the Lucas Skywalker Ranch. They have one daughter together named Boba Fett.
Boba
Fett Lucas is the daughter's name.
It's an interesting choice because Boba Fett in the Star Wars universe is a bounty hunter, popular character from The Empire Strikes Back.
April Fools, I made it up. I wanted to see if you knew. I thought that was an odd name for the daughter, Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Actually,
Boba.
the daughter's name, Boba. Actually, the daughter's name is Everest. Everest Hobson Lucas. And she
like
was
Mount
born in
Everest?
August 2013. Yeah, like Mount
Okay.
Everest. Everest Hobson Lucas. And born 2013.
And I took the bait,
Well, it's after April Fool's. It's the 3rd, but I thought maybe I'll try. So, but you didn't seem to be too surprised. I was wondering if there was a Star Wars, do you think people have named their kids after Star Wars characters?
Almost certainly. And if you had said they'd named their daughter R2-D2, I'd be like, okay.
Okay. Well, I thought that was too absurd. So when I saw Boba Fett, I thought, well, that might work.
That might get
But you
him.
didn't seem to bat an eyelash. You're like, well, okay, it's an odd one to pick, but
Yeah,
okay.
you're talking about George Lucas, who's cool. I mean, Michael Jackson named one of his kids Blanket. So
Yeah.
Boba Fett, R2D2, but she could have named the daughter C3PO.
Did you ever think if you have a child, what you would name your child?
That's a great question. No, naming is a hard one. I always
Yeah.
admire people who have pets with funny names too, or cool names that you wouldn't think of. Right?
Yeah.
That's a hard one.
Yeah, no, it is. And so that was Melody Hobson. There were a number of birthdays today, but I thought hers stood out. But if we're still living, and we have another April 3rd, there'll be some other birthdays to pick from.
When you sent the picture over, when you said, how is she so well known, I was going to immediately say George Lucas's wife, but I thought, well, it's a business thing, and we talk about DreamWorks. But yeah, they met. They had I think they're very much in love. He's always, they're like one of those
Power couples.
I want to call him a power couple, but he like avoids a lot of stuff. He's up in Skywalker Ranch outside of San Francisco, and they're very quiet, and he just hates a lot of that press stuff and everything. So yeah, I'm not.
When they call it Skywalker Ranch, is it just the name, or is there some theming around it, or is it just?
Well, Skywalker was Luke Skywalker from
Right.
Star Wars, and it's where he actually had. He does.
Does he have a studio there?
Oh yeah. There's a sound studio.
Okay.
They have special effects located there. Industrial Light and Magic is not far away, but it was like kind of an enclave or a campus. It's more like a campus actually for his film stuff. It's
Could you
his
visit
version
it?
of. You can drive by it.
Yeah, it's not like you wouldn't go take a tour.
You have to be invited. Laura lived pretty close to that for a little while when she was at that school out in San Francisco. There's a statue of Yoda in the town right next to like a water fountain with Yoda in the middle of it, not too far from there. So that was his version of Hollywood away from Hollywood when he built that.
Right. Cool. Well, happy birthday to Miss Hobson. Our shop talk today. It's I think maybe because Easter was so close. This had popped up on LGBTQ Nation, and it said a lot of people are leaving their religions. And then the subtext was anti-LGBTQ plus sentiment is a driving force. So this company, or this nonprofit organization called PRRI, had done a recent survey of over 5,000, about 5,600 people, and found that 18% of Americans left their religion and now are religiously unaffiliated. And this was between the years of 2013 and 2023. They said of the 18%, nearly half cited anti-LGBTQ sentiment within their prior religion as a reason for leaving. They said the survey also found that over a quarter, 26% of Americans now identify as religiously unaffiliated, making it now the largest single religious grouping in the country. And they said a lot of people, 67% said they simply stopped believing was one of their primary reasons for leaving religion. And I was thinking about this and my friends, and I was trying to think about the number of my friends that I would say are devout enough that they go beyond just the simple holidays, that they would go every Sunday or try to go every week to church. I know very, very few of my friends, at least in my circle. I don't know about you, whether this holds up
Yeah.
in your circle of friends in New York.
Well, I was raised. You were raised
Protestant.
Are you Protestant? Okay,
Protestant.
so I was raised
Methodist.
Catholic. I was raised in the Catholic faith. Let's put it that way. And I was an altar boy the whole bit. But after my confirmation, which is that the church recognizes you as an adult, our parents gave us the option of whether we wanted to go or not, and we're all like, no.
So your sisters, did your sisters stay or no?
Neither are very religious. No, if they are, and I think they made an effort. Especially Laura made an effort when my nieces were younger, to definitely expose them to religion and give them the choice of whether they wanted to follow the faith or not. In the article, there was a little snippet that was intriguing to me. And it says here, the trends seen here largely apply to white former Christians, particularly former Catholics. So it seems like the Catholic faith, according to this, the Catholicism is where most people are like, that's where it's seen the largest drop in participation or new people coming to the fold. I'm not surprised by this.
Yeah, Yeah, it said 45% of former Catholics cited sexual misconduct as the reason for leaving the church.
You know, it's a weird lens to look at this through. So billions of dollars have been paid out by the Catholic Church and the Vatican to settle these claims of sexual misconduct and abuse. And then you have the same organization turning around, wagging a finger at people, saying, "Well, if you're, it used to be if you were divorced, you can't get communion, or, love the sinner, hate the sin." Crap when it came to LGBTQ, and a lot of families have uncles or aunts. Like, look, I was just at a wedding where my youngest niece grew up with Bob and I as her uncles. And I don't think she bats an eyelash at that. So if you have someone from the pulpit wagging their finger saying these are bad people, Jesus doesn't like. And by the way, that's the other disconnect. Jesus, if you believe that he existed and he was a good man and he walked the earth, he said nothing about a lot of the stuff the church wags his finger at.
No.
His big thing was love thy neighbor and treat others as you would be treated yourself, right? It's like, that's not exactly saying, go attack the gays, right?
Did your niece have a religious ceremony? Did they have a minister? Or?
Do you know who conducted and it was a beautifully done ceremony? My uncle, who used to be a priest.
Wow, that's right.
Yeah, he officiated the wedding, and he did a beautiful
wonderful
job. Yeah, it was nice. It was nice.
Is he still devout? Does he still go to church quite often, you think?
I don't know if they do or not. And he still does weddings, and he does officiate. He's done same-sex weddings the whole bit. I'm not sure how that fits into whether or not they go to a local parish. I should ask him that question, actually. He doesn't talk about it much. I think he took the best things away from the religion humanly possible, which is kindness, love, charity. There's another one. In fact, I'll just say it this way. When I was a kid, our parish priest was obsessed with two things: poverty and ignorance. He said, we will never in our lifetimes eliminate them. Get to work. Help people that can't help themselves, raise them up, and educate people. Where in there was stuff about all the stuff we're talking about, right? I mean,
right. The other surprising stat that I pulled out of this is said, however, the fact that these people are leaving organized religion or leaving this particular faith they may have grew up in, they said that it's really only 4% of Americans identify as atheists, and only 5% identify as agnostics. So even though they've left, they still believe in something, as you said. Maybe it's the teachings or the overall teachings of love thy neighbor or do unto others. And so I thought that was an interesting thing as well. Talking with family over the weekend, and my brother, he talked about, and I have my two nieces teach, and they talk about kind of the unruliness of classes and classrooms now. Behavior. And my brother was, which I was surprised about. I mean, we talked about this in roundabout ways, but is not having a structured religion, as we all kind of grew up and we all went to Sunday school, or you went to CCD classes, I think the Catholic kids would do. Do you think it's part of the downfall of kind of the American family, or the structure, having that sort of structure in terms of respect and discipline and, respecting elders, respect your teacher, respect authority, respect your government?
What's fascinating about the point you're making is I think it's an intersection of different forces. So if you're taught at home to respect your parents and to respect elders and to treat others with respect, and then you have an institution that you visit on once a week, like a religious institution, a church, and that's reinforcing that and giving you reason to do that. And then there's this other aspect, which your mother would talk about this. My mom could hop on and talk about it. For some reason, over the last 20 or 30 years, or maybe longer, public education has become the parent. So when the kid goes to school, like the teacher becomes a teacher, a disciplinarian, a counselor, like all these things. And in our day, teachers used to scare the crap out of me when I was young. Not that they would do anything bad, but they were the authority figure in the classroom. You didn't want to upset them. Now I see videos on Facebook, or I guess it's like Twitter now and then, where students confront teachers and are screaming at them and yelling at them, and you wonder, when's the teacher going to hit the kid? But So I think it's a combination of forces, but my mom saw the degradation of behavior long before it's even become more apparent. She just said a lot of this has to do with parenting.
Yeah. And I wondered if it because I certainly am not I'm not devout to any particular religion. But I do have in terms of the tenets, in terms of respect, I think we're all somewhat spiritual that way. But I wondered, it was, to me, I guess you can make an argument for it. On a side note, it's interesting. My niece is an instructor at a local university in Connecticut. And she had asked me, she said, are you seeing in your business, she was asking whether you and I see kind of this proliferation of AI coming into
Is
marketing.
she getting students submitting stuff?
She said it is over. They don't know what to do. And she said, they had software for plagiarism before so if you drop text or you pull text from something, she said there is no software available yet for identifying
AI.
stuff that came out of AI. So they're trying to name, so she said the kids are so lazy that they would just type in, give me the biography of Ben Franklin. I'll make it up. But what they're trying to do now is they're naming the courses or naming the topics with words that are almost impossible, that if you typed them into AI, it would give you something that made no sense. So she, for instance, said there was something about persuasion and media. And so kids were just going in about persuasive media. And she said some of them were so dumb they weren't even reformatting. They were just handing it in as it spit it out with the font and everything.
Wow.
And she would ding them, and then the parents went to the dean, and then the dean went to my niece and said, oh, you've got to. She said, it's not their work.
Yeah.
And she says, what do you do? And I said, well, you need to have them stand up and give a presentation. She goes, oh, ho, 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 Uncle Tim.
Public speaking. Yeah.
She goes, yeah, no one can get up and do that. She goes, and they can't defend it. They know none of this. She says they're just typing this in. So what they started doing, she gave me an example. She said they used the words legacy media.
What'd they come back with? This is good.
All kinds of nonsense. So she said, obviously, when they were handing this stuff in, then, because it would break out the words, right? So it broke out legacy and broke
media.
out media. So it didn't. So it was one way.
Understand that that's actually a common term. If you're in that, woof, yeah.
So she said that's what they're trying. That's what the professors are trying to do now. Is how can they name some of these courses or assignments so that it kind of fools the AI, or a workaround for some of the AI. It's scary.
AI as it stands today is what is it? Generative. It's a text-based system, so
Right.
they keep feeding texts into this thing. The other day, as an experiment, I came across a posting of someone who said, you can use ChatGPT to create a mind map. I haven't done a mind map in a long time. It's like one of those things where
Right.
it's like almost this branching tree structure. Just for fun, I plugged in a very complex idea to the mind map, and it came out with a really interesting outline. And at first, I was blown away. I'm like, wow, this is really something. This could really change things. But then as I began to read it, it became more and more generic. Mm-hmm. In other words, it's the stuff that they pulled out of a textbook, right?
Right.
And it was a marketing thing that I put in there. Like, what's the intersection? Is there an emotional connection between da-da-da-da? And yes, there is. And then as you start reading it, you realize it's the kind of thing you could pull from anything, but it's not synthesis like you're talking about, like what the kids should be doing. It's
Right.
not taking that knowledge, looking at it as maybe a guidepost, and then going off and doing their own research, right? So, wow.
Right. So what she said to them, she said, if you want to use it, because you can't tell them not to, because they're going to, she said, you have to cite that you used it.
Yeah.
And if you do use it, you should use it as something that maybe was a thought provoker for you.
There
say,
you go.
Oh,
That's
okay.
it. Yeah.
And work on it that way. But I thought it was, and this is a sidebar from our religious shop talk, but I just thought you would find that interesting.
I think your
I don't
your
know where
niece
it's
has
going.
She has it absolutely correct. Use it as a thought starter. Use it as something that maybe it gives you a point of view you never thought of before.
Right.
But do the work. This is going to be the next couple of years are going to be even months. I mean, they just came out with some AI thing that can actually take a 5-second, I forget how short it is, a clip of someone's voice and recreate the voice almost perfectly. Between that and deep fakes.
Yeah, there was some artist that said if you do that, if you use their voice and you they'd give you some of the royalty if you created a song. But hey, the mind map thing, was that through Chat GPT?
Yeah, that was through Chat GPT.
And so how did you do it? Did you type in mind map? Or
I said create a mind map for the following topic, colon, and then I put the topic in. Then you have to tell it to create a markdown version, and then you cut and paste the markdown text into just an empty web browser, and it actually creates like a static picture. I should send you what it did. It's and then when I changed it, like I put the exact same prompt in 20 minutes later, and it was different. The result was different. So that's another thing about AI that like the consistency. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, there you go, folks. Welcome to April. We hope you had a really relaxing holiday weekend. And as Tim said earlier, we're, not seeing too much of that, Easter candy floating around. We want to thank our partner at, I know, Tim, I want the robin's eggs on sale, the 2-pound bag. I want to thank our partners at Deep Discount. They have a sale this week. Or actually for the month. It's the MGM's 100th anniversary sale. Tons of titles to choose from. Tim picks Steel Magnolias, which you can pre-order, and the minute it drops into Deep Discount's hands, you'll get that. It's a 4K Ultra HD. I picked Elizabeth Berkley's movie, Paul Verhoeven's Showgirls. If it happens to be on back order at Deep Discount, just order it anyway because you need this movie in your collection. And the new release this week was Freud's Last Session, which came out on DVD. Anthony Hopkins, Matt Good. We want to remind everybody to don't text and drive, arrive alive. Have a great week, and we'll see you in the new one.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.